Hey, ma'am, have you heard about the new Idaho ID that, I've got to take my 97-year-old mother down to the DMV to get a photo ID so she can vote. Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay, well, let me explain it to you here. If you go out to voteidaho.gov, you'll see all the information that's right here that explains this. Okay, so as a result of that, you'll have to take her down and get her done. Okay.
Okay.
Now the reason they're doing that is because they don't want everybody to vote, and that's the reason. Now I don't know how you feel about that, but I don't think that the elderly should have to go through all these jumps and hoops in order to vote. Do you?
No.
Okay. Well, there's that. Now we also, if you haven't been registered to vote, then you can fill this out. And by the way, you can go online with your driver's license, and all you have to have is one of these driver's license or the ID, and put in that and to verify that you're registered to vote. Okay? And the other thing is you can request an absentee ballot. And the absentee ballots, I've done that since I was in the Air Force. When I was 21, I voted absentee, and I didn't know who those guys were in Bannock County. All I knew was the president. But when I got back out of the service a couple of years later, a year later, and I looked at some of these guys that I voted for, I said, did I really vote for that guy? It was Tom and Jim and Bill. So, they're a bunch, I said, gosh, I can't believe I voted for him, but I didn't know it. But at least I got into the program. In other words, I was involved. And then from that point on, I voted every time I had the opportunity. Okay, I'm 79. I've been voting a lot of years here. Okay, and then you can also check your registration, as far as where you can vote, the polling places, because a lot of times what they do is they change the polling places, like schools and that sort of thing, and they might change it, but you'll be able to verify that before you, a vote. Okay, but I prefer voting absentee because they send that ballot 3 weeks before the election, so I don't have to listen to who's been born and who's got a divorce and who's married to who. It's kind of like old home week, and I'm not interested in that. Okay, so that's why I do it. Well, the second thing I want to talk to you about, have you heard of the Open Primaries Initiative?
No.
Okay, well, what it is, in 2011, the Republican Party said this: if you ain't a Republican, or I shouldn't say ain't, if you're not a Republican, then you can't vote for a Republican in the primary in May. Now, what that means is there's 270,000 people that are not Democrats and they're not Republicans. And if they go down and take a ballot because they want to vote for a good guy in the Republican Party, they're automatically switched to the Republican Party, and then they start getting all these mailings asking for money. Got it? All right, you're on the rolls then. Okay, you might not want to do that. So what the Open Primaries Initiatives do away with that. Make a law so they just can't close the primary. And so they got to get 60,000 signatures. There's 2,000 volunteers, including myself. And I have to go out and get the signatures and to qualify for the ballot in November of 2024. 60,000 signatures. And these are all 2,000 unpaid volunteers, including myself. Okay. Have you heard of ranked choice voting?
Sort of.
Okay, well, what it is, let me just kind of briefly explain it, is at the present time it's a winner take all. And that means if this guy gets 35% of the vote because the billionaire gave him a lot of money, then he wins. Now, 65% of the people are not too happy with that. And as a result of that, they say, wait a minute, I don't like that guy. He's a real turkey, and can't we do better? Well, so what they came up with, because of the new, computers and that sort of thing, is they call it ranked choice voting. So if there's 4 people running, you can rank them like, this is my first guy, this is my second guy, this is my third guy, and this is my fourth preference, okay? So when the tally is in, if nobody has 50% plus 1, you can't keep everybody happy. But at least if you got 50% plus 1, then this guy is eliminated if they don't have it, and it's added to the remaining 3. If the remaining 3 don't have, one of them doesn't have 50% plus 1, then this low man, a second low man on totem pole, it's added to the 2 remaining, and that's the guy that's going to win. Okay, make sense?
I got it.
Okay, now what I did was, is I found a guy that explains ranked choice voting with ice cream cones. Now, I'm 79, so it took me a little while to really understand it, and I had to watch it 3 times. But anyway, he explains it with, the ice cream cones, and pretty simple. Okay, so if you click on that, you'll see that video. The other thing is, you got a smartphone, right?
I do.
Okay, and if you click on this one, you'll see the details of the initiative. Okay, now I will share with you the billionaire up there in Idaho Falls. He paid $100,000, I think, to Sarah Palin, and they had a meeting up there, and they said, the billionaire said, don't sign this petition. Don't even get it on the ballot. We don't want it. And Sarah Palin said that she lost in Alaska because they have ranked choice voting. She ran against McCain, with McCain, remember that? Against Obama in 2008. Well, it's been a while. Well, she didn't get elected. So she blamed that. So when the billionaire said, don't sign it, see, we told you, even Sarah Palin doesn't like it. Well, the Idaho Republican Party said this, don't sign. We're going to tell everybody, all these Republicans that we have on the rolls, we're going to tell them not to sign this petition. Now, I don't know about you. If a billionaire tells me not to sign something that I can vote on in November next year to pass yay or nay, I'm going to go out and get 30 signatures. Got it? Okay, here's where you can find out the information. Okay, the second thing is, when I was asked to run for office in 2016 by a state senator, I said, well, I've never run for office. And he says, well, I'll pay you $30 fee and you'll figure it out. That's what he said. I didn't really know how to do this. So what I did is I went out and started watching KISU Channel 3 and 4 over the air. And they have Idaho in session between the hours of 10 o'clock in the morning to noon. And I recorded these videos off the air. And that was primarily for me to help me understand, what does it take to get elected? Well, I noticed one thing, that those brochures you get in the mail and what they say in the newspaper is not exactly how they vote. So they don't necessarily walk the talk. So anyway, for my own purposes, with my iPhone, I went ahead and loaded up all those videos, 90 of them, with my iPhone. It took me 4 hours each one. Now, I've been married to my wife for 55 years, and she said I'm crazy. Well, she ought to know. But I did it primarily for my own purposes. But then when I loaded it up on my YouTube channel, and if you click on this guy, you'll see all those 90 videos. So you'll be able to see them in action. You'll be able to see that guy that's in your district and see exactly what he says versus what he says on the paper that says, I'm a conservative and I vote for this and schools and all that stuff, but not necessarily so, okay? So you'll be able to see it. And there was one of the initiatives, or I should say one of the laws, that they tried to get through in this last session, whereas they said that they're going to put a $2,500 bounty on librarians. If somebody walks into a library or any school library or public library and they see a book that's got nudity from Paris, France, they could say, that's obscene, and they can collect $2,500 from that librarian. Did you hear about that? Maybe you have. See, I can see that you haven't. Okay, so what they did was, in the House of Representatives with 70, they passed that law. And in the Senate with 35, they passed the law with a simple majority, and it went to the governor. Now, I called my governor, Governor Little, and I said, don't do this, don't pass it, and veto it. And he did. He vetoed it, so it didn't become law. Well, the House of Representatives of 70, they have the option to bring that veto back to override it. They needed 47 votes. They got 46. Okay? Well, the Republican Party in May, they had a special platform where they do the platforms of their, or the platform, and they have all these planks and things. Well, they singled out the 14 representatives, Republican representatives, and took them to the woodshed and paddled them. So don't do that anymore. If you do, you won't get any money. They censured them, and they censured the governor. And so that's how they work, how they operate. And you know, I like my representative, and I wrote them and said, please don't vote for this, and they didn't. But those 14 are on call. Okay, all right, you'll be able to see all that here. And they're going to bring it back because one vote is all they needed to get it passed. Okay, the next thing I'm talking about, have you ever heard about gerrymandering? You have heard about it, but you don't know the details, right? Well, I want to show you what they did because I ran for the legislature in District 28, and I did it 4 times. You know I ran 4 times? Me and Abraham Lincoln, we have something in common. He ran 8 times, okay, and he lost. I've only run 4 times, and I have 4 more to go. Okay, so what they did, that's a joke. You're supposed to laugh, you know. Okay, all right, you seem a little stoic to me. Okay, so anyway, before, where Interstate 15 goes into Pocatello, I knocked on a lot of doors up there in northeast Pocatello to, you know, put up signs and walked it in 2016, 2018, and 2020. Well, they moved it, and where they moved it is, see that? They changed the lines. Now this is called gerrymandering. Now the definition of gerrymandering is whoever does the redistricting and change the boundaries is to make sure the incumbent stays in office. And they did that to me, by golly. So anyway, these people can't vote for me anymore. And in fact, I have, you know, that's the way it is. So I spent all that money and all that time, and they can't vote for me. Okay, so what they did in Bannock County, gerrymandering, they call it, this is cracking and packing. And what it is, they divided Bannock County into 3 different districts, 29, 28, and 35. 3 of them, 3 out of 33. And so I used to be able to, I spent a lot of time knocking on doors in Aramo and McCammon and Lava Hot Springs and an income. But, and they can't vote for me. So these people have to vote for people that are on the ballot from all the way from Teton down to Bear Lake, over here, McCammon, Aramo, Lava Hot Springs, and half of income. Now, and one thing about income, I want to tell you, half the people in income are going to vote for people from American Falls down to Franklin County, and half of them are going to vote for people from Teton down to Bear Lake. Now, isn't that really neat? If you live on the south side of the freeway, it's American Falls to Preston. If you live on the north side of the freeway in income, population 900, you're going to vote for everybody from Bear Lake down to Preston, or down to Bear Lake to Teton. Okay, got it? Sometimes I get a little ahead of myself. Okay. All right. So they cracked it down, and I'm going to show you the video here. I'll show you a card here how you can watch this. And this is classic gerrymandering. You know, some of that gerrymandering back east, you know, it's like a snake. You know, it looks like a python. And that's racial gerrymandering. This is to make sure my incumbent guy that lives right here where I do, make sure that 21-year veteran legislator stays in office. Now, Idaho used to have term limits. Back in 1995, it was passed by by the people. You know, they had 58% of the vote, same thing as these open primary initiative. Well, they passed it with 58% of the vote. They repealed it in 2002 with the legislature. And see, when they had the term limits, it meant that you couldn't stay in the House more than 8 years, and you couldn't stay in the Senate more than 8 years. They got old Mike Moyle up there, the Speaker of the House. He's been there 26 years in the same seat. See what I mean? Yes. You know, you don't do that in corporate America, right? Well, they did. So let me explain how they did that. What they did there's this guy named Bart Davis, and he's an old-time politician up there in Idaho Falls. And him and his two other buddies that have been former legislators, they were on this redistricting committee. And what happened was that they said, okay, we're going to have these meetings and everything. He says, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start here, and we're going to add Franklin County to Power County and Bannock. Well, those guys down in Franklin County says, now wait a minute, we don't necessarily like that because we align with Bear Lake and we align with Oneida. Well, holy cow, and they didn't like that. So anyway, they had meetings. He said, don't worry about a thing. Old Bart said, don't worry about a thing. He says, by the way, Bart, when I hear him talk, he reminds me of a lawyer, a Southern lawyer, that when you get through talking to him, you have to reach back and see if your wallet's still there. Okay? So he's a former, they had these three guys on there, all of them former legislators, and they put this together. So they had 90 days of meetings. And 80% of the people didn't like this, especially from down in Franklin County. And as a result of that, they had all these people said don't like it. Only 20% said they did. And as a result, after the meetings were held, they said, okay, we're gonna do this, and we heard you, and we made the changes, and this is what we're gonna do, and this is the final, and this is it from now on for the next 10 years. Now I want you to notice something. See any difference?
A little bit.
A little bit. Well, there's not much. Okay, so it is the same. So this is September 2021. And this is the final in December 2021 we got to live with for the next 10 years. Well, that's it. And then, and by the way, there's the League of Women Voters. They have, if you go out and do a search on gerrymandering, you'll see this. League of Women Voters played this at our Rotary meeting, and I just kind of said, well, I think everybody ought to know about that. Because a lot of people don't know what gerrymandering is. And this is a 3 or 4 minute video made by somebody that explains how it's done with computers. And this guy that was in North Carolina, he invented this thing, and they're used in all the states. Democrats use them. Okay, so that's that. Did you learn something?
Yes.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you stopping. And if you see my face on the ballot, or my name on the ballot, well, you tell other people you talk to me. You don't live in Bannock County, but just tell all the friends you have, okay?
I will.
All right, thank you.
We're going to try and lock doors in 15 minutes.
Okay, we'll be out.
Thank you.
You did good.
I'm worried about this group, though. I'm worried about this group right here.
Nope, we're out. We'll get there.